super excited to have Elisha Frontz with us today. I reached out with my fingers crossed to the Dayton Society of Artists, and they hooked me up with her, and I was super surprised that she said yes, and I'm thrilled to have her here. She is an artist who incorporates fiber and baking into her artwork. She has a lovely studio and website that we will share links to with you. And without further ado, I'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
All right, let me know if you want to maybe turn off some lights.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe just this way.
I don't know.
So, hello everyone. I'm so excited to be here. I know that Lori is taping this presentation, so you might want to silence your phones if you have the second to do that. Also, thank you so much for listening. And you're also kind of my guinea pigs for today. And I thank you for that, even though you didn't know that you were going to be guinea pigs. I have a very large presentation that's going to be worldwide kind of a thing coming up in December. It's going to be through the Ohio Arts Council because I'm going to be part of the Ohio Biennial, which is a really big deal in Columbus, and like the chances of an artist getting in, it's similar to like me being struck by lightning. So I feel really grateful for that opportunity, and this opportunity has really prepared me for that one. So thank you guys so much. So, as Lori said, I wouldn't necessarily call myself a fiber artist. I'm a mixed media artist. So, uh-oh. Can we do this? I'm holding it backwards. No, I'm not. This is one of my pieces. It is actually on display right now at the Contemporary Dayton, which is basically the Contemporary Art Museum downtown that's been relocated in the arcade. Do you all go to see art regularly in the area? Yeah, okay, that's great. I can just use this.
Okay. It was working earlier.
It was. I don't know what's going on.
Okay, I guess you're gonna use your
I'll just
manual
do
clicker.
If the manual clicker will work.
Is there an on-off switch to it on the
It's on. Has a light.
There really are more sites than this. All right.
This is why you try it out.
We
We
did.
did.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Computers freeze, yeah, and you have to rebuild them,
Yeah.
that happens all the time.
All right, let's do that. I apologize.
No.
It happens to all of us, the
We're-
other day. it
they've got their
happened to me,
name.
everything was
Yeah.
fine, and all of a sudden I couldn't do a thing, I have to do that.
Okay. I should probably just skip this part now.
Yeah.
I've been here for about 40 years. I have an associate's degree in fine arts from Sinclair, and then a bachelor's of fine arts degree from the Art Academy of Cincinnati, and both of those degrees are very specifically in sculpture. I've worked all over the place as an art educator, the Contemporary Art Center in Cincinnati, and the Dayton Art Institute, and before COVID, I worked as a professional musician, and then during COVID, everything fell apart, which I'm sure you all understand and remember. And then I decided to kind of pivot and go back to fine art and really devoted myself to that. So as I said before, I consider myself a mixed media artist, but I do use a lot of fiber arts mediums within my work. I have a working studio at Front Street. It's an art complex downtown. Some people have visited me there, and you're all welcome to come. In addition to that, I'm also the director of membership at the Dayton Society of Artists. You can come visit me there too. Okay, so why am I here? Lori wrote an amazing email, and I wanted to kind of point out some of the things that were really important and that I'm gonna highlight in my presentation. She was very specific about me talking about the intersection of fiber, textiles, and art. And right now, there is a huge trend where that has become important. It was ignored for decades, but right now, it is super important. And she also said, very specifically, that she wanted me to talk about how fiber art is viewed and valued within the broader art world, and how artists are using textiles today, how institutions are exhibiting those works, and how the craft to art conversation continues to evolve. I think those are so important. As an artist, myself, I have been judged harshly because I use fiber-based materials, and that's mostly coming from a very white, male-dominated perception of what art could be.
I'm sorry.
So I have some really strong feelings about that myself. Okay, so what do these words even mean? We've got fine art, fiber art, textile art, and domestic craft, right? And I think that for most of us, we can kind of discern the two ends of the spectrum, right? We know what fine art is because we've been to museums. Well, that's what old white guys are telling us what fine art is in a lot of ways. And then domestic craft over here, the goddess herself tells us what that is, right? But these two in the middle, the fiber art and the textile art, they're pretty weird and ambiguous. Even for people in that field, those words are used interchangeably. So I had to do a little research myself as to what exactly those things mean. I looked at fine arts first. I think that we need to kind of discuss what that means. And if you look at the dictionary, it's just creative art, especially visual, that is primarily and solely imaginative, aesthetic, or intellectual in content. Or something that involves a great amount of skill, right? I think all of you, I'm like looking at the sweaters, you are all extremely skilled. So do not discount yourself from this particular conversation. My own personal definition of fine art is that a fine artist attempts to communicate, right? It's an idea or a narrative, instead of producing something functional. It can be beautiful and functional, and it can have great skill attached to it. If I'm looking at something and I'm thinking, wow, this is making me think differently about the world, then that is what I judge to be fine art. Fine art also has a very specific audience. Sometimes that's just for other artists. It's very like, we tend to be really introspective with our own work. We also talk to our collectors and galleries and art institutions like museums. We make work that we know they're gonna like. Contemporary art and artists keep pushing the boundaries of what fine art is. We try to just keep moving the bar forward. Fine art is always evolving, and that is something that I think is really important. But those are just like my ideas about it. There are so many different kinds of fine arts. You can see like there's a list here, and they all kind of intersect and interweave. Unfortunately, there is a hierarchical structure to what a lot of museums want to see. And that has been from antiquity, you know, and it's kind of driven by market value. So, it's always going to be paintings first. Hopefully that will change. Paintings are really high on the list. Sculpture's really high on the list. Sometimes conceptual art's pretty high on the list. If you see something and you're like, I don't even know what I'm looking at here. Yeah, I get it. Where do you guys think that fiber art and textile art fits in? Have you guys had any exposure to that? Yeah.
I think of Bing Davis because he has a lot of art that's all over the place as far as sculpture, painting, and texture, and fiber. And
Yeah.
so I think part of it is making your name known in a fine art area, in a museum area, and then you can pretty much go anywhere you want with your materials.
So I love Bing Davis. He's extremely experimental. He might have brought that in later, but he might have always been working with fiber arts. What I'm going to say is that fiber art is in every single one of these categories. You cannot make a painting on a canvas without textile art, right? Canvas is a textile. So you wouldn't have any of these things. Even the digital world started with looms. The earliest looms were the earliest computers. So Jacquard looms, totally digital. All of that stuff relates to what you guys are doing right now. So let's talk about fiber art versus textile art. Even museum curators use these words interchangeably, but this is kind of what I found when I did a little research and a little digging about how you can sort of distinguish between the two. Both of them are going to use natural or synthetic fibers as the primary medium, right? But over on the fiber art side, the concept and expression of the artist is going to be super highly valued over the functionality of the piece. And in addition to that, including super experimental materials or processes, that's also a really huge part of it. Versus the textile art, it's kind of like looking to the past rather than looking to the future. You're going to be looking at pieces that are very historically accurate. The process is looking at a heritage either of a community or a time period and really relating that back. And craftsmanship is valued moreover concept and expression, sometimes also functional or decorative work is also included in textile art. Just so that you have like a variation of the theme there. So, this article right here is from the New York Times. It came out in 2023. And this is probably why I'm here talking to you guys today. In 2023, fiber art is finally being taken seriously. I mean, people have been making cloth, have been knitting, crocheting for centuries. And it hasn't really been taken seriously, probably because it's mostly been women doing it. But hey, look, we're getting a moment here, which is really awesome. I want to just really quickly tell you that I've asked Lori to email my presentation to all of you later, and everything in pink is a link. So you can actually go straight to this New York Times article, and I have listed several different artists in this presentation. You can go straight to their website and look more at their work, find out more about them. There's gonna be tons of stuff. You can do a deep dive or a shallow dive, whatever you want. I chose a few different quotes from this article that I thought were super important and answered Lori's questions really well. I'm just gonna go through them really quickly, and if you have any questions later, of course I will answer them. So first of all, the fiber art movement formed against the backdrop of the women's liberation, civil rights, and anti-war movements. I would say that that is true. Anything having to do with fiber arts is kind of a protest. You're able to do something yourself that could be mass marketed and maybe undervalued, but you're doing it because you love it. The article very much credits the fiber arts movement of the 1960s and 70s to women and minorities, and especially women that were transplanted from Europe during World War I and World War II. And there's two prominent ones that I listed, Louise Bourgeois and Annie Albers. They both came over and really spread the ideas of the European textile ideas to women in the art world who were ready to work outside of kind of the enforced value system of painting and sculpture. So, the energy around the fiber art movement and the small flurry of institutional shows dedicated to it petered out by the late 70s, although many artists remained committed to the medium. So, people liked making fiber art, and they took it right into the DIY crafts movement. That's why Martha Stewart exists, right? Crocheting and macrame, plant holders, all that kind of stuff became popular because the fine arts community kind of decided that that was a thing that could happen, and then it kind of spread out into the world, into the ether, and became popular. So the materials became ubiquitous, but it sort of remained a cousin to like real art, right? And it's been trapped in that space. The article says a liminal space, which I kind of like. It's trapped in this space between high art, sculpture, and its ignoble cousin craft. So, the red-headed stepchild. I feel like times are changing, and we'll get to that in just a moment. To take fiber art seriously is to understand how fabric is inextricably linked to the body and to the many ways it is an extension of it. We wear it, we sleep in it, we are wrapped up in it, we are born and we are buried in it when we die. It is a part of everyone's life, and to be overlooked is ridiculous. Okay, I think this is the last one from the article. Now, as the art world reckons with just how narrow its conception of artistic genius has been, the hierarchy placing art above craft and intuition above skill looks ever more gendered and archaic. I think we're all just coming to a point where we're like, all right, guys, we need a moment, okay? I loved all of those quotes, and I do really feel like they embody how the fine arts community is looking at fiber art itself. I'm going to talk about several artists that work within the fiber arts community, and the way that I have kind of structured the rest of this presentation is that I'm gonna talk about the pioneers, the people who were working in the 60s and 70s. I'm gonna work into the people that they inspired a little bit, and the people who are working now within the greater fine arts community. And then I'm gonna talk about local people who are working within the fiber arts realm. And again, you can go in and look deeper at any of these ladies. This one is Magdalena Abakamowicz. She was one of the transplants. She came from Poland, and a lot of her work talks about living in the Soviet Union, in a very communist-dominated portion of the world. Here you see her standing with some sculptures. These are all made of burlap that's been coated with resin. And she doesn't include the heads a lot. It's like, you have this mindless army. She was super cool. She might still be alive. This is some of her work that's installed in a museum. These are just huge tapestries that really just fill your whole eye when you look at them, and they dwarf you. Kind of like living in a regime that would dwarf you. Here's some more. I especially like this black one. I know you can't really see it in the slide itself, but it's two different tapestries that are connected with this almost like lungs, like brachii that are branching out and connecting the two. And then in the center, you see it looks like a whole bunch of potatoes. Those are like rocks that she's created out of burlap and just really rough fabric. And I think that they're supposed to be rocks, but they're, like the size of a human being. This lady, her name is Ruth Asawa. She makes the most gorgeous pieces out of wire. She loops them together in this very crochet-like way. She was a Japanese American woman, and her family was forced into internment camps, where she learned some fiber art stuff that was very traditional to her ancestry, but then when she got out of the internment camp, she went and studied at this place called the Black Mountain College in North Carolina, and that's where Annie Albers also worked, and I talked about her a little bit earlier. So, Ruth Asawa is a big name. This was a whole set of stamps that was just a couple years ago. I have this at home. It's like one of my prized possessions because I just love her so much. I love the form and the texture and the transparency of her work. I think also, sculptor. Here's a museum view of her work. You can see some of them are really large, like this guy right here in the middle. I wish that I could show you guys what the texture is like. This bottom piece, this top piece, like branching out. It's so gorgeous. This lady is a huge big deal. Her name is Sheila Hicks. She, in the late 50s, went to South America and learned about fiber arts culture there, so craft there. And she brought it back here, and I love this picture of her hands working with the fibers that she creates. And mostly, her process is just wrapping. She just wraps and wraps and wraps, and she makes these kind of pillowy shapes, but she also creates some other stuff. These guys over here that look like paintings, that is just string wrapped and wrapped and wrapped around a form. And if you know, I don't know, there's a local artist named Mike Elsaw who paints on steel, and he's kind of a poor artist, but his works look so much like that. And I included this one because it's my favorite. She's taken long fibers and then just wrapped them in a way that they kind of stack and interweave. Yeah. It is so gorgeous. It hits all my excitement nerves in my brain when I look at that. Here's some other installation shots of her work. She's got like mesh bags full of different forms that she's wrapped. She makes these really long waterfall pieces where she's talking about the color and the size, but also just the texture. And it's so simple what she's doing, but it's also so beautiful. There's something about the simplicity of what she's doing that really relates to the beautiful quality of what she's doing. Here's some stuff that is also included. She's got some stuff in Paris, and the one over here that looks like weird snakes, that's on the High Line in New York City. So there's lots of different ways that you can experience her work all over the world. So now we're gonna kind of move into a slightly more present tense. This is Faith Ringgold, who's an activist for feminism and the civil rights movement. And she was working very specifically in the realm of like quilting, but she turned her quilts into paintings. So here's some of her paintings, or quilts. You can see, this one's called Tar Beach. It's probably one of her most famous pieces. And there is very much a traditional quilting aspect to it, but it shows a very different aspect of life that maybe a lot of Americans didn't get to see outside of New York City at the time. Here's another one by her. This is Nick Cave, and if you go into just about any contemporary arts museum, you're gonna see works by Nick Cave. He is very specifically talking about racial inequalities and also violence against minorities. His work covers the entire body and creates a barrier so that it's hard to recognize whether a person is black or white or male or female. But he uses all of these different crochet and knit pieces to do that, and then he makes these fantastic masks. These are some of my favorites, but also this is another museum view of his work where it's just huge. And he's also a choreographer, so he choreographs dances where people wear these. He films them, and that's also part of his work. So there's so many different aspects that he's working within in the fine arts realm. These are really fun. Here's another installation view of his work. A lot of these have like silk flowers put into them as well. He's fun.
Yeah.
This lady, Bisa Butler, is my age, and she was very much influenced by Faith Ringgold, who I just talked about a couple slides ago. She creates quilts that are very much like paintings, and she uses a lot of patterning as well. And she's also talking about minority history.
You said she used a lot of what as well?
Patterns.
Patterns.
The patterns are important in her work, like the look of the fabric, I guess is what I'm going for. So here's some of her pieces. Again, these are quilts, and this is Frederick Douglass over here. She creates that sort of shading by putting mesh fabrics over top of other fabrics. So her quilts look even more like, I don't know, realistic paintings. Except when you get up close, you can see all of the different like patterns on the fabric, which is really interesting too. Here's another one by her. I know. I know. She is pretty great. This lady, you can go see one of her pieces today if you want to. And I really mean that. She's amazing. I think that she has a degree in like aeronautics or something like that in addition to fine arts, and she's won multiple Genius Awards. She creates these huge, beautiful fiber art installations. They all work with the air, and so here's some. I know! They're so gorgeous. They just hang and they flow and they're just beautiful. This is the one in Columbus on High Street. I stood there in 95-degree heat and I was like, oh my goodness, this is gorgeous. It spans buildings. I kind of hope that the birds don't care. But it is so gorgeous. Just the scale of it and the way it moves in nature. Yes?
Is it static or does it blow?
So, can you see how it's kind of got, that part moves. There is an infrastructure that does not.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, totally.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So it's kind of got like a netting quality. All right, and this lady is really super young. She was born in 1981. She makes really interesting, I'm not gonna try to say her name because she's from Buenos Aires.
Alexandra.
Well, yeah, her first name is Alexandra. Anyway, she talks very, very specifically about environmental issues, and she makes enormous, like tapestry rugs. So you can see one behind her in this picture. And they have all the texture of a real landscape. They're breathtaking. And they're so large that they really overwhelm you and give you the sense that the environment is important. I really like that. Here's some other ways that they're shown, where they kind of come right in front of you and just go right down into the floor. Just gorgeous work. All right, there's so much more. I realized when I did my practice run through that I was gonna go way over time. So I just stuck these in. You guys should totally take a look at these at your own leisure. All of them are great. Let's talk about local people. This lady over here is the curator at the or the Contemporary Dayton. Her name is Heather Jones. She's known all over the world. She's amazing, and she makes really interesting, gigantic, quilt-like, abstract contemporary works. And she's super nice. Down here, this guy, Jesper Beckholt, is really young, really cool. He makes work almost completely out of pipe cleaners.
Wow.
These are all paintings made of woven pipe cleaners. I couldn't get a really good photograph of what he does because I could only see his Instagram feed, but he's local and I've met him a few times and he's fantastic. And then there's me. So I thought I'd show you guys some of my work. I started out sewing when I was a little kid. My grandmother and my mom taught me how to sew, and as I kind of inched my way into the art world, I thought, oh, I have to be a painter or a sculptor. and studied all of that. That's great, and I'm not disappointed about that, but then when I returned back to my art making practice, I kind of had to return back to my roots, right? What I loved and what I thought was important. And so I stitch in almost every single one of my paintings. I also include a lot of sewing patterns too. And one thing that I did not discuss within fiber arts is that some people include paper as a fiber. Some people don't. It can be debated. I kind of do, because then whatever. So anyway, this is a piece of my work, and this is another piece of my work. This, I know it's really hard to see, but this is all hand embroidered here.
I can
This,
see it.
yeah, this
Yeah.
part, and this part right here.
What's the size of that piece?
They're actually two separate pieces, but they're 24 inches by 24 inches. So if you put them together, it's 42 by 24. Or 48 by 24. My brain works.
How do you attach,
Oh,
is that like over on the side there, is that fabric, that beige, is that fabric or paper?
this right here.
Yeah.
So the way that I work is that I always start with a watercolor painting.
Okay,
And I paint on really, really thick watercolor paper, which is made out of cotton, by the way.
right.
Then, after I finish the painting, I decide where I'm going to put sewing patterns. So this that you see right here is a sewing pattern that's been applied right to the surface.
Oh, how cool.
And so is this, and if some of you do so, you can see
Oh,
that,
there's
you
a
know,
green line there.
that there.
Yeah.
So those are attached right onto the surface, and then I start embellishing with the thread. So after I put the sewing patterns on, then I go through and I just pierce right through the watercolor paper as if it is a fabric, and I embroider right on top of
So
it.
that black circle there, you're stab stitching that on,
This
yeah.
is just painted.
Oh, it's painted, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
And then
right. Okay,
after I'm done embroidering the whole thing, I adhere everything to a panel. So
Okay.
it's on a wooden panel, nothing's gonna come off. This particular one also has like gilding, so this part right here is gold leaf, and this too.
so is any of this fabric or is it
None of-
painted on and then embellished with stitching?
None of it is fabric.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I also have another body of work. This is the piece that's going to go into the Ohio Biennial. And it is like a real full-sized quilt. Unfortunately, we learned that a family member had a very devastating gambling addiction.
Oh, wow.
And so I was left with boxes and boxes of lottery tickets. And I'm turning those lottery tickets into heirlooms. So, because that's all we have. So that is very specifically what I'm gonna be talking about in my presentation with the Ohio Arts Council. This piece is also made of lottery tickets. The lottery tickets are $50 lottery tickets. It's hanging at the Contemporary Dayton, and I just won Best in Show. So I'm really excited. That just happened this weekend. But yeah, so I've got works like that too. So that is the end of my presentation for you today. I hope you learned something, or like it scratched the itch that you very specifically wanted to find out about. This is also another, like a smaller piece of mine. I have my email address and my website right on here, and I also have the address for my working gallery studio. You guys can come and visit anytime. We're open to the public the first Fridays of every month and the Saturday following. So please come and visit me, talk to me. I love it.
We can take questions.
Definitely take
We're
questions.
gonna ask you to either speak very clearly or I'll repeat the question because we're recording this for our evening meeting.
Actually,
Does anybody have a question?
does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
The lottery quilt that you made, how did you, is it like a traditional quilt where you've got the top piece and then batting and a backing?
Yeah, I did not use batting so much.
Okay. But it is paper.
It is paper.
How did you
Have
do
you
it?
ever heard of paper quilting before?
No.
So it's a very, very old English way to quilt. And if you ever see the quilts that have the teeny tiny hexagons that fit together.
Yes, yes.
Okay, the way that they do that is that they cut out paper hexagons. They use a little bit of adhesive and put the fabric on there. Cut the fabric around the hexagon, fold it over, and then each one of those hexagons is hand sewed together. But it has a piece of paper in it. And I kind of used that idea when I was making the quilt. So I have like a piece of graph paper, right? I've cut all of my lottery tickets straight to size and I glue them onto the graph paper. And then I take that whole thing that I just made, I sew it onto a piece of fabric. And that becomes my quilt square. And then I put the quilt squares together, boom, boom, boom. And then, I have a quilt top. And then I sew all of that to a backing.
How do you preserve the paper so that it doesn't deteriorate over time?
It will deteriorate. And that's
Okay.
part of it, I kind of want it to. These are painful objects. Yeah,
How long did that take you to make?
months.
I was going to guess years.
Well, it took months, and it probably took longer because I really had to get over a lot of grief. And it was like looking at the amount of lottery tickets and touching each one and realizing that, like, specifically for the red, white, and blue one,
Can you put them back, put that
Yeah,
picture
yeah.
back up?
these are all $30 lottery tickets. And there's hundreds of them
Oh,
in this quilt, and each one I was like, I could have sent my kids to college. I could have paid for this medical bill.
Right.
It was heartbreaking to go through that, but it was also healing at the end. I've made this beautiful thing out of something so painful. And as it has hung in my studio and people have experienced it, I'm finding that that the gambling addiction of lottery tickets or whatever is so common. And it's healing for other people to see that someone's gone through it. I mean, we don't like to talk about it because it's super shameful. I've had people who are like, I've never told anybody that, when my mom died, we didn't have anything because she'd spent it all on this or that. So I feel like I'm helping people, which is good for me. Does that answer your question?
Yes,
I
it
feel like
does.
I'm rambling,
No,
sorry.
thank you. No.
Yeah,
Wait, that's called English paper piecing.
well,
The
yeah, there you go,
technique is-
English paper piecing.
Yeah.
I kinda got there. Yeah,
This is not a question, but a comment on how things have changed. I mean, usually the big innovations happen on the West Coast and the East Coast, and maybe 4 or 6 years later, they trickle down into our heartland. But when we first moved here in 1982 from Omaha, I did a show at the, where the police station is, and where the Weaversfield meets. The building, the Bryan Center.
oh
Bryan
yeah,
Center.
yeah, the John Bryan Center.
Was having, a show in November. And I was there, had a booth with my handspun yarns. The first person I saw practically was Lynn's mother, who was a famous weaver from Lincoln, Nebraska, that I had known, and a lot of her friends. And then the next show I did was in the spring in Beaver Creek, kind of out where Route 35 is now. There was, delta of land that they had the show set up, and Bing Davis was the judge for the show.
Oh, neat.
And I had baskets of my handspun yarn because that's what I did. And he awarded me best of show. And all the painters were up in arms.
Of course I
This is not an art object, this is a raw material to make something.
Did he give any explanation?
He said they were beautiful, they were innovative, they were a new thing then. I mean, now everybody is doing the big fat fleecy yarns and the spiral
Oh, yeah.
thing and everything, but he had never seen it before. And, he said it's the way it makes you feel. It's not.
Definitely.
Okay.
I love Bing Davis so much. He's such an inspiration. When I was in middle school, I think I was in 7th grade, our art teacher was like, you guys, I'm having a real artist come in and talk to you. And it was Bing Davis, and I remember walking around for like months being like, I met a real artist. And he does that. He goes out into the community, and I think that's what really has made him, he's just a great person to share that kind of energy and love of things. If something is beautiful, let's celebrate it, and I love him for that.
Now I have a rosette hanging on a very obscure part of the wall of my studio gathering dust. So in case I ever wonder if I ever did used to do something artistic, I can look at it and say, well, Bing Davis last week.
Well, I can see what you have on your lap. You're still doing it, so. I think there was like one other question, or, yeah,
Actually, it's kind of two questions,
yeah.
but one is about the lottery tickets.
Mm-hmm,
Your relative?
yes.
I just wonder, was your relative still alive, or did he find this after they died?
That's a really good question. And it's kind of both. He's alive, however, he has Alzheimer's, and we found out about the addiction because his behavior changed so drastically, and he stopped paying the bills.
Yeah.
So, my husband took over the family finances and realized that hundreds of thousands of dollars were missing. And that's when we were like, well, where did it go? And then we found the lottery tickets. So a lot of people keep lottery tickets, even if they're not winners, although there were probably thousands of winners. He would just like recycle the winnings right back into buying more lottery tickets. But a lot of people keep those for tax purposes. Apparently you can write off losses. But I will say that I have enough lottery tickets to make 50 quilts, possibly more. I don't know.
Oh my goodness.
Horrifying.
So you had another question.
Yes.
It is.
Do you know of Karen Brito?
Karen Burrito. No.
About 20 years ago, she was doing shibori silk art in Yellow Springs. I don't really know what she's doing now.
Oh, she's doing
Up.
that in, New Mexico.
Ooh.
Okay.
She's living in Mexico, and she's,
Lucky her.
yeah, some people were on her. I don't
20 years ago, I was having children. So, all right. I guess that's it for me. Do you guys have anything Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
Oh no, I got these. They have their little luchadors. They're like little Mexican fighting guys. I love them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very